Hello and welcome to this episode of Let's Talk About by Kangaroo Minds. I'm Vedika and today we have with us Dr. Sheba Singh. Dr. Singh is a psychologist and the founder of the Talkspace Mental Health Studio located in Powai, Mumbai. Having a PhD in psychology and over 20 years of experience in practicing and teaching, she specializes in the treatment of anxiety, OCD, depression, as well as has extensive experience in working with children, parents, and couples. She has authored several research papers and spoken at several seminars, including at IIT Mumbai, JP Morgan, and L&T. She has also been recognized with several awards, including the most prominent leader in mental health, as well as the Mental Health Leadership Award by the World Mental Health Congress. Our conversation with Dr. Singh today focuses around understanding the challenges in supporting the mental health of students. Before we begin this conversation, however, I would like to put out a trigger warning for our audiences. If at any point during this conversation, should you find the topics being discussed triggering or distressing, we would urge you to take a step back and look after yourself. Should you need any additional support resources, you can also find them on our website. And now, without taking up much time, let's hear more from Dr. Singh. Dr. Singh, it's lovely to have you back with us today for this conversation.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction, Vedika. And I'm so glad to be back here.
I think, the topic that we're going to talk about today is something which has become such a pressing need of the hour. Like almost every day we'll hear about some cases, we'll read about some cases. And, we always talk about how the students of any country, not just in India, are sort of the future of that nation or the future of the world. So I think, it makes sense that we address their mental health today in this conversation. So, based on your experiences, how would you describe, the current state of student mental health? Like, are there any trends that you've been noticing? Are there any challenges that you've seen which have been on the rise for students?
Yes, Vedika, definitely. I have noticed a lot many things actually. To start with, I notice a lot of loneliness, and that probably is triggered by social media because social media, and we may say screen time,
Right.
a lot of screen time, a lot of sitting at home, not doing anything, not going out, not interacting with people, not interacting with peers. Forget about parents and elders and teachers, but they don't even uh, mingle with their peers. They don't want to go out, so a lot of laziness is setting in, you know, and hence loneliness because you have say 1,000 friends on Facebook, but you interact with maybe two of them, physically if you want to interact with them. So I think that's a very difficult state with students. In others, so many things crop up out of this. So anxieties and depression, so
Mm.
many types of anxieties, and they manifest in different ways. And anxieties are definitely, you would also know as a psychologist, you would know that is spiraling down and then concluding about such things. And when you are glued to social media or you are glued to the screen, you come across so much of content, um, which is which is true for you. Some of may be true for you, not all. But students or the younger generation end up, believing in that. You know, so that's a very alarming state, I
Right.
think. And if I can say, yeah. So another point which I want to make over here is the decreased self-esteem.
Mm.
You see so much, you see so much around. There is a lot of competitiveness, you know, when your classmate is scoring more than you know, you become anxious. And that is just because there is nothing wrong in, say, competitiveness, but it has to be healthy. You know? You should not be concluding that, okay, if my If I don't stand first in my class, or if I don't attain a certain level, the 1, 2, 3 or ABC will happen to me. That is what is happening. So that decreases the self-esteem of that person, that oh my God, I couldn't achieve this. So, and a lot of students and a lot of, say, young adults are working towards it, and
Mm.
not taking a break at all, and hence burnout also.
Right. We've been seeing so many rising cases in student suicides now. It's almost like, you wake up every day to one case or another of, a young person who's ended their own life, either due to, exam stress or stress around grades or marks or stress around, the anticipation of their future career or the job market. So, what would be, your thoughts around that?
So definitely, Vedika, we all are seeing this trend. And if I talk to you authentically and scientifically and research based, then our Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has also said that there has been an increase, a steep increase in suicides from the, say, last decade. The trend is like that, and these are so distressful, and such emotional notes when you find, that I am sorry, mom and dad,
Mm,
I can do this, maybe next time. Now, these are some very stressful, say, letters by students, and very emotional ones also. And what does this show? Is there a is there some kind of a pressure from the society, some kind of pressure from the parents, or it is a pressure from the peers, or their own stress, their own pressure? You know, they want to show it to themselves that they can do it, and when they are not able to do it, uh, they just say that the life ends here. They have no option. They can't see any options. I think a lot of mental health care is needed. We need to speak to our younger generation. That's the future of the world. We need to speak to them and tell them, that this is not the end of the world. If you
mm,
can't get into an A class engineering college, or you can't become an IAS officer, or you can't do a certain whatever you have thought of, you've not reached there. That's not the end of the world, right? So it distresses me a lot, and it alarms us all. It should rather alarm us all.
I think it was interesting, that you mentioned about that pressure of society because just yesterday I came across a news article from Kolkata about a young girl who was, on her way to her exam center with her mother in an auto rickshaw, and there were like two, three other people. And they met with an accident, and the mother died on the spot. But they still took the child to the exam center and made her give her board exam.
Yeah.
Which somewhere tells you about how much as a society and how much that personal pressure exists, like you mentioned, around, things like exams and grades and things. And I'm sure we'll come to this later as well. But I think it's just alarming when we read these kind of stories.
So people need to think, okay, if she doesn't appear in this
Hmm.
exam, what will happen? Nothing much is going to happen. Maybe a year more.
Hmm.
We give this child an year from her own life
Hmm.
so that she processes her emotions. You know, it's it's something to think about on the part of maybe elders. You know, we can. So Students, when they want 1 year from their life, suppose they say, okay, I want to take a break. After 12th grade, I don't want to do anything. Let me explore a little more. And the parents, I am not generalizing, but many a times, parents would say, why do you want to waste a year?
Mhm.
What will happen if he is not able to complete his bachelor's at the age of 20 and he completes at 21? What's the big deal? You know? So I think people need to think about it. If she doesn't appear in the board exam this year, she will appear in the next year.
No, I think you're very right about, those sort of timelines which get imposed on people's lives, which make it so difficult to, for instance, if someone wants to take a gap year, or if someone needs a mental health break, or even in the case of this child, just needs time to process that grief, which must have been extremely fresh because it happened on the way to the exam center for the child.
Correct, correct. So I think more than the student, all others need to think about their emotions and think about what they are thinking and what are the thoughts they are processing.
I think this is something I will come to later with you, when we talk about the ecosystem around students and the support networks that students have. But before we get into that, because there's a lot of misunderstanding around mental health. As you said, children are getting a lot of their information from social media or, the internet. So, coming from you, I think, just to call out sort of the myths or just to clear the air, what would you say are some of the signs that, students and young people can look out for, which would suggest that they need help with their mental health?
So the first alarm is physical, you know, because that's very concrete. We can all see that. Others can also understand that this is what is happening with the child. You know? So when I say physical symptoms, that would be any changes in your sleep and appetite. You know, when either the sleep is increased or it has decreased or there is this disturbed sleep. When you wake up in the middle of the night and you wake up with a jerk sometimes, and you're not able to sleep well, and you don't wake up fresh, that is an alarm. When you're eating, also, your appetite goes down or it goes up. When you start sometimes binge eating, or you eat very less, you don't feel like eating. Um, and I'm not talking about when people are dieting, when youngsters are dieting. It's not like that. So you don't feel like eating. That's a change in your appetite. Then there, if we are talking about students, then there is lack of concentration. They are not able to concentrate on studies or on sports, or they stop taking interest in other things which they used to like earlier. Now suddenly they don't want to go for party. You know, earlier they used to. Now they've stopped reading some novels. Okay, earlier they used to, right? So things like that. Or sometimes students come to me and say that we don't want to talk to anyone, nobody at home. And if they are staying in a hostel, they say they don't feel like talking to their parents over a call. So they miss calls. So that's again a sign. Um, some sadness comes in, some anxiousness. So any change in the mood is an alarm. Isolation is an alarm. Like I said, that they don't want to talk to anybody, and they don't want to talk to peers or siblings or parents. Nobody. Any disturbing thoughts which come up in their mind, and they spiral down and they conclude on something very negative. Hmm? And also unexplained aches and pains. When say there is some headache or stomach ache and they go to a doctor and the doctor says everything is all okay, reports are all negative, but still you have some stomach ache, you have some arm pain, leg pain, or headache. So unexplained headache, aches and pains also are an alarm. So you have to look into all these things. If anything, such things happen to students, the students themselves or the youngsters themselves can look into it and maybe think of going to a mental health professional, or people around them can also look into these things. If anything is happening to a student or anybody, you they can reach out to a mental health professional.
Right. So, you very rightly pointed out the, alarm bells and the warning signs for students, as well as sort of suggested how they can get help if they find themselves struggling. But, in your experience, what have been some of the barriers that, you've seen that students tend to face when it comes to actually accessing mental health support or accessing resources? And how do you think we can help address these issues?
I think, Vedika, a very prominent barrier is stigma. I don't want to speak about it because we all know this. You know, we all know that we don't go to a professional, we don't go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist because what will people think? Or am I crazy? That I have to seek help. Why can't I manage it myself? you know why can't I speak to somebody, a friend or somebody? So many parents say that, why is my child coming to, or telling me to come to you? you know why can't she speak to me? Why can't she speak to her sister? Right? This kind of a stigma. And one that the youngsters, now I think the youngsters are more pro to coming to a mental health professional rather than the earlier generation. So many youngsters come to me with the parents, and the parents are like not very uh, pro to coming to a mental health
Mm,
professional. That's why they say, why can't you speak to me? you know but there is a difference when they speak to their friends, they speak to their siblings, they speak to their parents or teachers. You um, there's a high chance of judgment, which they fear. Youngsters fear judgment. And when they come to a mental health professional, one is that they don't judge. Two is that the whatever they speak to them is very confidential. That's also another fear of people,
mm,
and that's a barrier. That's a big barrier. That whatever I speak to the professional, all these things would go to my parents. This doesn't happen. That's not the case. This is lack of awareness. If you don't know, then you should know that psychologists and psychiatrists are, uh, say, trained in behaving non-judgmental and very confidential. Or whatever you talk in the session is all very confidential, right? So I think people need to know all these things. There should be very less stigma remain now, because there is a lot of awareness which the Instagram and Facebook and all the social media is also spreading. you know and also it helps people to know what are the alarming signs.
mm,
And I have seen a lot of change in the stigma part also, but I would say that it still exists. It has not, it's not zero. Still we need to make people more aware about what happens in a session and what happens when you go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. you know and what are the difficulties for which you have to go,
mm.
or you should be going. You are not crazy all the time. And I think you should stop using these words, um, if you want to normalize mental health. you know Yeah,
You touched upon the ecosystem with parents and teachers and things, and also the fact that that you've also noticed that this new generation, the younger generation, has that curiosity to know more, but they are also more willing to reach out. They're more willing to seek help. And somewhere they end up, facing a lot of these barriers. And one of the challenges which a lot of young people tend to talk about is, how do we share with our parents or guardians that we're struggling with our mental health?
very interesting, Vedika. Really interesting because actually parents need to know that the child is going through something. Mhm. And the child is always skeptical because he fears that the parents would not accept it, right? So I would say, like, it is vice versa. If the parents have to talk to the children, it's the same process. And if the child has to talk to the parents, the same process, right? Number one, you have to establish a rapport with your parents. If you're a grown up child, say you are 17, 18, you would know how to create a rapport or establish a rapport with your parent, right? Now, for that, you have to consistently be with them for some time every day so that you are at a stage where you can talk to your parent, right? Now, when you have to talk specifically about your mental health to your parent, choose a time where the parent is not busy.
Mm.
He or she is not over a call, or they are not in the office, or you cannot talk to them over the phone, or I think you should avoid writing them uh, the details.
Text.
Yes. So over WhatsApp messages or over a mail, I would not recommend that. You know, it has to be face to face. Sit with them, choose a time when both of you are not busy, you both of you are not tired, you know, and then use. Now many times unknowingly, students may say that because you did this and that's why I'm feeling like that.
Mm.
You know, that would be kind of blaming parents. No parent would want their children to suffer, you know, and they would not do anything deliberately. So I would suggest that you use I statements. Say, I am feeling like that. The causes may be hundreds. We don't know the cause. But the fact that we want to know about you is how are you feeling? Okay. And what can we do about it? Right? So say, tell your parents that I am feeling like that. Okay. And like I mentioned earlier, that the physical symptoms are very, very visible. And if you think that the parents are not psychoeducated about anxiety or depression, I would suggest that you start with physical symptoms. For example, sleep and appetite, that I am not able to sleep. I'm not able to sleep well, or I sleep excessively because I am emotionally distressed, or this 1, 2, 3 is distressing me, or 1, 2, 3 is not helpful, right? So start with the physical symptoms and then tell them after that about your psychological symptoms. So whatever is happening, whatever change you see in yourself, you know, maybe they will be able to understand it better, right? Yeah, I think talk about solutions also with them.
I think also related to this, I wanted to just ask you before we get into, more tips for students, but since we are on the topic of parents and families, like how do you, what do you see that as the role that, whether it's teachers, whether it's family members sort of play when it comes to nurturing the mental health of students and like young people?
Definitely. So, like I mentioned earlier, that this is the process for both parents and students and teachers also. The first thing is open communication. The first, like I mentioned earlier, rapport has to be the first thing. And then when you establish a rapport with students, um, there is an open communication. The student is open to talk about anything because he starts trusting you. You know? So when they trust you, they tell you about their difficulties. They open up about themselves. They open up about what's not helping them or what is not helpful, or what is distressing, what is so difficult for you. You know, whether it is studies, whether it is social interaction with the peers, whether you have friends or you have no friends, and what's the difficulty which is going on. Or sometimes there is this bullying happening in the colleges and schools. You know, so if such things are happening, there has to be some teachers, or I would say all teachers should be open to communicate about it, and don't disregard them at the same time. You know, acceptance is very important. And last thing is the action, right? So whatever action they have to take, or whatever they have to tell the student to do, that's the last thing which they can do.
I think that's a very interesting and a very comprehensive approach, that you provided both for students to be able to talk to their parents, but also the way that parents, teachers, guardians, family members can support younger people and students, of course, with their mental health. But coming back to students and, the things that they can do, how do you feel that students can work towards building resilience, whether it comes to navigating their academic life, their exam stresses, or just personal challenges that they might be facing?
So if I talk about exams, Vedika, uh, I think the first thing is that you should be confident about what you have studied. And if I'm talking about what you have studied, I will also talk about your knowledge. So the difficulty comes up, or we would say it is a mental health difficulty. If you are knowledgeable, you know your subject, but you are still not able to present it, or you're not able to write it in your exam, then it is a difficulty. But if you don't know the topic, if you don't know your subject, you know, and then you are not able to write it down in your exam, then I think we need to go back and see how much knowledge do you have about your subject. You know? So for that, I would say that they have to timeline their studies. They have to schedule their day, their time, and their studies so that they are well versed with their subject. That will give them the confidence. But if you don't know, and then you are anxious about the exam, you don't know your subject and you're anxious about the exam, I think that's very natural. So that's not a mental health topic, but we need to schedule it.
Right. I think that's, one thing that students really struggle with besides scheduling. That's definitely one issue that you addressed. The other thing that comes up very often is that, they talk about the struggle to concentrate, the struggle to focus, or even just having a hard time remembering what they've studied.
Correct. So when we talk about, say again, exam stress, three things I would say. One is self help. Like I said, that you have to schedule your day and time, and you have to have knowledge of your subject. And then there has to be environmental support. Environmental support would be teachers and parents and people around you. If you're staying in a hostel, you need to have some people you can talk to, some friends, some teachers. And the last is mental health support from a professional. You know, If you're not able to deal with this, then you need to go to somebody. When you say about when you talk about concentration issues, we need to check what's happening. Either it is some kind of anxiety which has cropped up, even though you know your subject, you're not able to perform well, you have sweaty hands, sweaty feet, and you're not able to perform, you know, and you're not spiraling down on negative things, then you need to either help yourself. You just check your knowledge, check your time, whether you're spending time correct, in a correct way, you're not wasting your time. I will also come to different things when you're scheduling a day, you know, and that I think I'll come to later. But uh, for now, for exams, if you have to fix up a goal, a day's goal, the goal has to be doable. If it is not doable, suppose you think that you can do 5 chapters in one day, but you're not able to do it, you're struggling to do it, and you are able to do only 3 in a day, then you put those 2 into the next day schedule. So if you were not able to do 5 today, how will you be able to do 7 tomorrow? That would be tough. So understand that the doable goal is 3 chapters. And if you are not able to do 5 because you've scheduled 5 chapters today, but you are not able to do, that brings in frustration, that brings in anxiety, and that also contributes to lack of concentration, because when you hurry up doing things,
Mm.
you're not able to concentrate. And if concentration issues are not uh, you know uh, dealt with uh, by yourself, then you may go to a professional to check whether this is this thing only or something else.
But also coming back to, personal life related challenges, because I think students nowadays deal with so much more than just their academics. There's so much going on in their lives, either online, offline, and of course, related to just, life events and things as well. So, how would you suggest that, they build up that resilience to navigate those challenges?
Self care is very important. I think when we talk about self care, so many people say that, okay, that is being very selfish. But self care is not selfish. If you're spending 1 hour every day on yourself, you are exercising for 1 hour out of those 24 hours which you have, you know, that's not selfishness. I think you should be thinking about it. If you are a student or you are anybody, self care is very important. Self care is not selfishness. You have to remember that.
I think I'm glad you touched upon self care, because I was going to ask you about this. That a lot of times, when we tell students things like, you should take out time to rest or practice self care, they end up feeling very guilty or overwhelmed, also because of the narratives around things like, resting is not productive, it's lazy to take time off.
Yes, yes, definitely, yes. So when I talk about scheduling your day, I include 3 things in that. One is the productivity. For students, it is like going to college or school and studying for 8 hours, right? And the second thing is leisure, and the third is exercise. So I want people to include 3 things in their schedule. It is when people work, when a student is studying, he says, I study for 18 hours. I don't recommend that. 18 hours. So out of these 24 hours, 8 hours have to be spent on, say, sleep. So 8 hours of sleep is very important, 7 to 8 hours. you know. Then you're left with 16 hours. Out of 16 also, you are there at your school or college for 8 hours again, and maybe 10 hours, you may say, right? You are still left with some time. This is not over. So out of 16, if you are spending time in your college 10 hours, you're still left with 6 hours. I would want you to spend these 6 hours in exercising, 1 hour of exercise every day, and leisure. So we forget about leisure and exercise. We say, okay, I've studied this much and my day was very productive and I'm very happy. You need not be happy. I'm sorry to say, but leisure is very important. Leisure is very, very important. Leisure means you do things which you like. Right? So you have to include at least 2 hours of leisure time in your schedule. So resting is not a waste. So in leisure, you may also include a half an hour nap time. You can do that. You can read a book, you can paint, you can talk to your friends, you can go out party, you can do all these things, right? Even though you have exams.
I'm very glad you said that because not just for students, but your tips around scheduling is something that even all of us as adults can learn from, whether it's family members, whether it's teachers, or just generally any adult who's watching this. That because a lot of times we also get caught up in that whole busyness productivity cycle, which just because we don't have exams, but we're also chasing other goals.
Correct. Correct.
But
Also, to add one more thing here, I would want students to be more assertive. You when somebody says that, okay, I studied for 16 hours, so they make a goal of 18 hours.
mm,
Uh, or somebody tells them, okay, parents are saying, and I'm again not blaming any parents, they just want children to do better, right? So if the parents are saying that, okay, why are you roaming about here and there, why are you not studying, you know you need to tell them very politely. So assertiveness doesn't mean that you have to be angry.
mm,
Assertive is, you just tell them that, okay, dad, mom, I've studied for 12 hours and my target is to study for 14 hours, so 2 more hours are left, so I'm just taking a break, right? So I want them to be assertive. And also, I want, if all these things are not working, I want them to seek help. That's important.
mm. I think you have a very valid point there about, assertiveness, that being assertive is very different from being angry or throwing a tantrum. It's this quiet yet, strong assertiveness where you put yourself out first, you have boundaries in place, and you communicate that with the people around you.
That's it. Yeah.
And I think besides everything that you shared, would there be any, like, small practical tips that you would like to share with students that they can incorporate into their daily routine, or any mindfulness related exercises that you feel that they can practice without feeling overwhelmed?
Definitely. So, one of the major features of anxiety is muscle tension.
Mm,
So, when we are anxious, our muscles get very tense. So, I would want everybody, all the students, to do some relaxation exercises. You know? So, when you do relaxation, now what are these relaxation exercises? One is progressive muscle relaxation. That's a wonderful exercise, and I rely so much on that. You know, you would get it on YouTube, or so that is to stretch your muscles once and then relax your muscles. People who do yoga would know this exercise. So this is a wonderful exercise to relax your body and muscles, because when your muscles are tense, your mind gets tense too, and there is a block. This mind stops working when you're anxious, and that's why we say that you don't take any decisions when you're anxious. you know. So this exercise helps a lot. Then other mindful exercises are grounding techniques, say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, where people come to present. If they do this exercise, they come to the present. Otherwise, their mind is wandering here and there. So bringing them down to what they are doing right now. This exercise is very helpful. And then there is box breathing, that is 4-4-4 or 4-4-8. You know, that's also a wonderful exercise. All these exercises you'll get on YouTube, or when you Google it, you'll find them. And another one more thing, I would want to add is mindful walking. Uh, this concept is this is an old concept, but right now it has become very prevalent. Mindful walking is when you walk, you feel your feet touching the ground, and every step you take, you feel it. That is mindful walking. That also is very relaxing. I would want people, I would want students to practice all these things.
Right. No, I think those are very helpful tips that you've shared. And I know we've taken a lot of your time. So, as a sort of a parting word, would you have any advice that you would like to share with somebody who's, either listening to this or watching this today, could be a student who might be having a hard time with their mental health?
So, everybody, if you think that you are going through some mental health difficulties, please reach out. Don't live with the suffering. We are all here to help you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dr. Singh, and thank you for your time. I know, you've shared a wealth of knowledge, which I think will be very beneficial to all our viewers, whether it's students, parents, teachers, or just any adult, who might be having a hard time and could use some tips around whether it's mindfulness, building resilience, or just coping. And for anybody who's watching or listening to this, please know that, even as Dr. Singh said, that if you are having a hard time with your mental health, please know that there is help out there, that there are resources out there and it gets better. So don't hesitate to, speak up and reach out. So till next time, please stay well and stay healthy. Thank you.